Hi everyone and welcome to my knitting channel. My name is Evgeniya and in this video I'm about to share with you my autumn knitting plans that I'm so excited about. I'm not a fan of summer knits and I'm such a big fan of woolly wool, warm garments, and this is my season finally starting. So I'm going to share with you a few projects that I already have the yarn for, a few projects that I have the yarn, I bought it but it's still on the way, not delivered to my house yet, and a few projects that I will knit for sure but I don't have the yarn yet. In every project I'm going to feature the design, my excitement about design, some words about the designer, why I love the patterns, are they clear or not, and the construction, needle size, yarn choice, and so on. What I'm wearing today is my Petite but sweater from Petite. I spoke about this finished object in my last podcast episode, so if you're curious you can just click the link in the description box and listen about this project. It's knit in Cardiff Cashmere Classic and it's actually the first time I'm wearing it in front of the camera. Before I begin, I would love to mention how much I love following trends, trying new designs from popular designers, but also I love trusting myself and trying something completely new, yarns that are not popular, that nobody was using before. And I feel like my knitting plans are a perfect mix of a trendy knits and my own personal touch to that. And with that being said, I'm starting with my first plan that is actually already on my needles, which is Braidy Loop Sweater by Other Loops. A very balanced, minimalistic but yet feminine design that features these two braids that go behind your neck and they go all the way through your arms. I find it so beautiful because a lot of cables sometimes is too much, well, depends on the size, too minimalistic, sometimes too boring, and this is just a perfect match of everything in it. The horizontal lines is 8x2 rib where you knit 8 stitches and purl 2. That creates these beautiful lines that face downwards, and then you have these two braids that go outwards across your arms. The pattern calls for a quite oversized look, so if you choose the correct yarn you can achieve a very lightweight garment and at the same time very beautiful, classic, luxurious piece of knitwear. It's quite smart construction that features two saddles that you knit separately over here, and then you pick up for the yoke both in the front and in the back, and then connect everything in the round and make increases for the sleeves, creating a round knit. And then you just separate for the body only, pick up separately for the sleeves, and finish the garment with 1x1 rib. It also has this very cute little detail that is a pearl raw in the neckline, which I'm going to also do. I love everything about this design, and if you've seen my previous podcasts you could notice that I love modifying the designs, but in this case I love everything about it. The only thing I would love about this pattern is that it would have more sizes. At least for me, I don't love so much of a positive is, I would like a bit less, but I can't because I'm already knitting the smallest size. Another thing I want to mention before I jump into the yarn, that this pattern has a few errors, but if you go on Ravelry and you can read people's comments, you can find what kind of errors it has and the solution for those errors. I'm not sure if she's going to fix those mistakes by the time you might decide to knit this pattern, but if she doesn't, you can still knit it. Just read those mistakes and it's easy to fix them and you can have the garment ready for your wardrobe. So about the yarn, I went for recommended yarn almost. So the suggested yarn for this pattern is Knitting for Olive No Waste Wool, held with Silk Mohair, or On Link Merino 2, I believe. Screen. I decided to go with Merino Knitting for Olive in the color Pearl Grey and brushed cashmere from Cariaggi, holding single thread of cashmere and single thread of merino. And that gives me a very beautiful fabric. I'll show it in my next knitting podcast. This is a variant to a very famous Cardiff Cashmere Brush Light, but a bit thinner. So basically it's a silk thread that has a brushed cashmere on it. I love buying Italian yarn and cone. I already spoke about it in my previous episodes. It's way cheaper. It's still quite expensive because again it's cashmere, but it's way more affordable than buying new yarn. This is also quite new because it was never used, but it's on stock, like on sale. So I love it. The pattern calls for 4mm needles and it knits up quite fast, which I find incredible for such a beautiful project. And basically you can hold any fingering plus lace yarn. Mohair could be perfect with any lightweight fingering weight. So my next sweater that I'm so excited to cast on is Penny Jumper by MorecaKnit. Her name is Ekaterina Morozova. She creates such beautiful, smart, clean designs. I'm such a big fan of her. So it's a very cuddly, airy, bulky weight drop shoulder design. I see myself wearing this when I feel cold, maybe sitting in the house, knitting, reading, going for a walk, or even going for groceries in cold times, and it's just going to warm me up so much. There's so many similar designs out there in the market, but this designer puts a lot of effort in the fit, makes sure it does everything necessary to fit it perfectly. So I find this sweater is like bought from a beautiful luxurious boutique. Recommended needles are 6mm needles. That means you will knit it up so quick. I'm also considering this as a gift knit. I think it's perfect because you end up having a very beautiful, cozy, puffy jumper that knits up quite fast. So the yarn that she's using for her white sample that I love the most is Concept by Katia Pluma, held together with Lana Gross's Sedisuri thread. Sedisuri is a Suri alpaca on silk, which a lot of people love using that instead of mohair if you're too sensitive to mohair, but I don't see so many people using this specific yarn. Lana Gross's Sedisuri, I think it's perfect and it's super soft because I have Sedisuri big version, like just thicker, and even with my sensitive skin, I have zero irritation. It's just incredible. I would knit with this yarn again and again. A little advertisement for Lana Gross. So I would use that, but I already had yarn in my stash that had to be used. I have 10 balls of this. For sure I'll have tons of leftovers. I have Rowan brushed fleece. It's a chunky weight yarn that is very airy. So it's a lot of fluff that is attached to the cord basically. That has 65% of extra fine merino wool, 35% of baby alpaca, and 5% of polyamide. I imagine the polyamide is just the actual cord that is attached to. It's a pure fluff and it's very likely to felt because for this yarn I already have a project in stash that I'm going to unravel that I don't like anymore. So when I unravel it, I can see that this fluff becomes felted, and this yarn deserves to be treated very carefully. However, I think it's still going to be worth it, and in stocking it looks exactly very similar to her white sample. That's why I think it's just perfect choice for this project. The next project I have the yarn for. I bought it, but it hasn't arrived to my house yet, which is a Cumulus tee O-neck by Petite. It's a very famous design that a lot of knitters have in their wardrobe and they really enjoy it, and for a reason. I also love this so much. I prefer O-neck because mohair is quite warm, so probably I'll use this piece when it's a bit cool outside, and I prefer my neck to be closed. But I was always postponing that project, thinking that it's too popular, it's too simple, later I'll knit it, but not now. I preferred something more interesting, a bit more complex, more mind stimulating, and finally I feel like now's the time. I would love that. I really crave that piece in my wardrobe. It can be used as inside one single layer piece. It can be middle piece when you put the jacket on top. And what I love about this is that the fabric is a little bit open gauge on 4.5mm needles with just 2 strands of mohair, and that creates a lot of breathability, yet makes you comfortable and warm. So when I work, let's say in the cold office or at home, or just go for a walk outside, I keep myself warm, but I don't sweat so much. So it's basically a raglan that you need top down, has some depth in the neck, very beautiful round neck. You knit with raglan increases, finish the body, and then top all of the edges for the I-cord. Very simple, I hope very fast knit. And the mohair that I chose for this project is Isager mohair in their colorway 0. I wanted to see this color for so much. First of all, I never tried Isager mohair, and I've heard that is the softest mohair in the market, yet I think could be even softer Lank mohair 21. I have never tried it as well, but I would love, of course. And Edo Sensai mohair, so I actually would love to try and compare all of them. But for this project, Isager Silk Mohair in the colorway 0. And it's a very interesting shade because you look at the pictures and sometimes it's pink, sometimes it's silver, sometimes it's silver beige, sometimes it's white, cold cream. It's a very complex color, and depending on the lighting, it can play in very different shades. By the way, for the whole project, for my size, I'm going to knit the smallest size XS. 6 balls are required only. You hold 2 strands and 6 balls are required. I find it very lightweight garment as well. The next pattern that I have the yarn in my stash for is Minna No Sweater by KFO. I think this pattern is freshly released and I found it myself on Instagram. When I didn't see the pattern I want to knit for in any knitting podcast, or it's not so popular, for some reason it gives me a weird sense of pleasure. This sweater is a basic raglan sweater, and I don't like raglans. I just don't like how it looks around the arms. Most raglans create this weird twist on the sleeves, but I was looking for a perfect basic raglan sweater, and this is the one. I'm so excited to knit this up. I think it's a true professional design that is really well thought. Another cool thing about this design that it has size range for everyone, for the whole family basically, for kids, for female adults and male adults, which I find just insane, because if I like this sweater, then I just knit the one for my husband, and maybe if we have a baby in the future, I knit the one for my baby as well, which is so cute. In this specific pattern, I don't see the sleeves twisting inwards, and I really love that. So that was the main reason why I chose this pattern. You start top down, casting on stitches without knitting the ribbing, then you do the neck depth, and then continuing raglan increases for the arms and for the body, obviously separating for the body and knitting separately the sleeves, finishing up with 2x2 ribbing in the bottom and in the neckline. Simple, professional, beautiful. The designer recommends the yarn that has been on my mind for quite a while, but unfortunately I'm not going to try it in this project. It's Fleece by the Rowan Nature, which is 100% merino wool, and it has a woolen spun. So I believe because it's merino wool, it should be quite soft. It's also carded wool. It's a bit puffy, and when you wash it, it kind of blooms and fills up the hole in between. But at the same time, I think it could be prickly to the skin because it's a woolen spun. So what I've heard from people, some people say that it's sensitive and they cannot wear it next to the skin, and some people really love it and they knit with this over and over again. So you have these two different controversial opinions about its softness. I would risk trying it on my sensitive skin, to be honest. In my case, I already had the yarn in my pantry, and it's a very special yarn for me. It's a 100% cashmere tweed yarn from Loro Piana in this weird mix of green and yellow. I think it's a very, very warm light green. This is how I would describe it. And it has barely noticeable speckles of blue, yellow, and brown in it. So this yarn on the video that you see right now is not bloomed yet. When you wash it, all of the oils that the yarn is treated with are going to disappear, and the yarn is going to open up and become as fluffy as this Cardiff Cashmere Classic that I'm wearing right now. So Loro Piana is one of my favorite brands over there, even among commercial yarns that are available all the time in the stock. And since the design features a little bit uneven rustic look yarn, I think this is going to correlate to that, because tweed is always something about nature, authenticity, and wool. The meterage of this yarn is 550 meters per 100 grams, and I'm going to hold this yarn double for the pattern. She recommends 4mm needles, I believe, and it's going to be also a really lightweight project. I have like half a kilogram or more in this cone, and I think I'll have a lot of leftovers after. I think will be enough for another sweater. The next project I will cast on, I have the yarn, I ordered it, but it hasn't arrived to my house yet, is Hoodie by Sitalkina. Svetlana is a Ukrainian knitwear designer. She is my favorite designer when it comes to construction. Her style is very specific. She doesn't care about beautiful Instagram pictures. She just puts all of her effort into the construction. The amount of times she tried before she actually did the correct construction, she has some shorts on YouTube, are just surprising. She includes in her patterns bust shapings. She takes into consideration the differences between female and male bodies, the arm depth, the arm circumference, and a lot of different things, which I truly appreciate. If you already know me, you know how much I love the perfect construction fit. So she releases her patterns in 3 languages, which is Ukrainian, Russian, and English. I never knit her patterns in English, so I cannot say if it's clear or not. I would trust her. You can try if you like. You need to purchase her patterns from her website, and just if you knit her patterns ever, let me know if the English patterns are clear, so for me to know. So it's a jumper that has a hoodie on top and features a beautiful pocket in the front. All of the details are so well thought, so professional, so clean, and there is no doubt it's going to be comfortable to wear, because my husband is going to wear this item for nature, for climbing, for hiking, for just walking, and he is going to move, obviously. And when the garment doesn't fit perfectly, you start noticing all of the imperfections, and at some point it can bother you. So I really searched for a perfect hoodie. There are a lot of them in Ravelry, but this attracted me the most. The pattern is knit on 3.5mm needles for my gauge, I believe. She doesn't recommend using needles, she just tells you the gauge, and then you experiment with which needles you can achieve this gauge. So I'm going to probably knit this on 3.5. It's a contiguous shoulder construction, so you cast on stitches for the neckline, and then you increase along the shoulders, continue increasing for the sleeves and the body at the same time, and then separate the sleeves, keep knitting the body, finishing the sleeves, and doing the ribbing. Then you pick up stitches for the hood, knit up the hood, and then you knit up the pocket. She's also a big fan of stock yarns, Italian stock yarns like cashmere, lamb's wool, and so on. But I needed something very durable and very long lasting. First of all, because I'm going to put lots of effort in this knit. My husband is big, he is tall, and this is quite tight gauge. So I wanted to make sure he's going to wear it for at least 10 years actively. And I was thinking, what kind of yarn could fulfill that need? And I could not think of a better yarn than Tynn per Gynt by Sadness Garn, held together with their Alpakka Følgetråd or Følgetråd, how you call it, I don't know, in Norwegian. And I never tried this combination of yarns and these yarns overall. I think it will be amazing. So Tynn per Gynt is quite durable, a bit rustic yarn, and Alpakka is 100% alpaca lace thread. Will create a little bit of fluffiness, softness, and fill up these holes in between stitches. So I will get a very lightweight and warm fabric. My idea is to finish it before Christmas and gift him as a Christmas gift this beautiful hoodie, and maybe take it on a Christmas vacation, but we'll see when the yarn comes and how the project is going to keep going, because we're going to also move in 2 months to a different place from the island to the continent, renting a new house, and of course I will have some weeks off from knitting. The next pattern is an accessory, which I don't have much in my knitting list because I prefer cardigans and sweaters, and I'm not such a big fan of accessories. But I will knit something if I need it and if I'm truly inspired. So my next inspiration was Lane Socks by DUCATHI. I was very surprised how quickly captivated by this pattern I was. Beautiful, minimalistic, yet overall lace pattern. I don't know how did she came up with this, but for me it's the perfect combination of elegance and minimalism at the same time. The designer's name is Katharina Duden. I think she's from Germany, and all of her patterns just look so well thought, very detailed, and truly worth the effort, I would say. Like, to be honest, I'm not a sock knitter, but when I look at her catalog, I just want to knit everything. She has short versions, longer versions, a lot of lace, different textures, so take a look if you want. It's a standard cuff-down construction with no ribbing that's knit on 2.5mm needles, and for these socks I chose a very special sock yarn from me, by the way. Quite expensive, but truly worth it. This is Scheepjes. I don't know how to pronounce it. So basically it's the softest sock yarn that I've ever touched. It is so soft that I would love a sweater in this, and I have a feeling it might become one of my favorite yarns ever. This is the yarn that I accidentally touched in one of the yarn stores with my friend Inna She lives here in Tenerife, and we meet from time to time. And in one of the days, we went to the yarn shop and touched a lot of yarn. And when I touched it, I was like, is that a sock yarn? I cannot believe it. So the name of the yarn is Metropolis, and it has 75% extra fine merino wool and 25% polyamide in color 25. It has a very rich color selection, from bright colors to neutral colors to completely undyed looking colors like this one. Maybe it is even undyed, that's why it's so soft. Anyways, I'm so excited for these socks because I want to need them for sleeping. We're moving to the north and it's going to be quite cold there. Like right now it's 12 degrees there, even though it's still early autumn. And I believe I'll find it useful because a lot of times at night I get cold, and I was thinking it would be nice to knit something super soft because I don't want to put my really rustic wool socks, and I wanted to knit something specifically for bed. And I found this. The next pattern I have the yarn for in my stash is Kruglik by Sitalkina as well. This is a very classic contiguous shoulder design that features a very deep rounded neck. And this is the pattern I'm going to knit for my mom. I want to gift her a sweater. Since I started to knit, I haven't gifted her a sweater. I only knit for 2 years and she still has nothing from me, which is a pity. So I asked what does she want, and I made sure that she took all of the things into consideration and mentioned everything that she wants. So she said she wants a very open neckline because she doesn't like things choking her, and she wants a quite deep armhole. At the same time, she also wants quite clean look, classical, luxurious looking sweater, and she really loves a specific color. So with that, I was searching for quite a while. That's the reason I didn't start any project, because I could not find the perfect pattern and the perfect yarn for this. Finally, it happened thanks to Sitalkina, the same designer that I mentioned for my husband's hoodie. So she has a pattern that is called Kruglik. It's a 3 or 3.5 millimeter needle size, and it's the same construction. Basically, you cast on for the neck, you increase for the shoulders, and contiguously you keep increasing for the arms, for the body, splitting the sleeves, knitting down, knitting sleeves separately, and then finishing off with the ribbing. She is doing bust shaping for this project, and I believe she took tons of effort to create this pattern, because everything that I see by the hashtag on Instagram, all of the ready projects from other people and testers are just beautiful. And that is a sign that the pattern is well made, because sometimes I see the pattern, I love it a lot on designer's page, and then I open projects from other people and you see a lot of flops basically. And I don't believe that people just knit wrong. It's just the pattern was very perfectly photographed, but the actual work has a lot of things to work on. So the yarn, a mix between green and blue, and its beauty. It's a very beautiful royal color that I cannot even describe. Sometimes it's green, sometimes it's blue completely. It shines, and yeah, I lack the words to describe it. It's 100% cashmere from Loro Piana, and it's that type of cashmere that is not so fluffy but shiny. So you have different types of cashmere. You have carded cashmere that is more fluffy, like this one for example, and lightweight. But then you have more shiny with long hairs that has more weight on it, that holds ribbing way better, and that is more silky like. Sometimes you look at these garments and you may even think that it has silk in it. So this is that type of cashmere. It's very smooth, shiny and silky, and I think it's going to look just gorgeous in this classical rounded neck, contiguous shoulder sweater. Again, I hope to finish this project before Christmas and of course gift it to her, but not going to pressure myself. We'll see how it goes. Next pattern that I'm certainly sure I will knit, but I don't have the yarn and I will not buy the yarn yet I finished all of these projects, is sweater number 29 by my favorite things knitwear. I loved her sweater number 15, but I wasn't convinced so much, and when she came out with this new version of that pattern with a bigger gauge and with a different construction, I was certainly sure that it's going to be in my wardrobe. I don't know when, but it's going to be. I already have the pattern, but I don't have the yarn yet. So the sweater is knit on 5mm needles. Is all over cable pattern that has this gorgeous saddles over here that you knit separately first, and then you pick up for the front, for the back, and then knit everything in the round. I don't know all of the details about the construction, but it's quite simple if you pay attention to the details as you're knitting through the pattern. The only thing that is a DK plus mohair weight, so it can be too warm for a lot of people who work in the office or work from home. But since I spent a lot of time outside in nature, I find it's going to be a very useful piece. So the recommended yarn is Isager Jensen plus silk mohair. So Jensen is 100% wool that is a combination of different breeds of shapes that creates you a very lightweight fabric, which I love a lot. I already have Jensen in my stash. Not going to use this for my sweater number 29 because it's quite prickly, and if you're sensitive to wool, you may not like it. However, I never tried it in the combination with the silk mohair. Mohair might compensate the rustic feel of Jensen and it may feel amazing, but I wouldn't risk that. The second recommendation from her, from the designer, is Semilla Melange from BC Garn. And I believe, I never tried that as well, but I believe it should be softer than Jensen. It's a bit thinner and therefore more lightweight. Semilla Melange and Semilla Pura, which is undyed version of it, are two yarns that are on my list to try, and I have a feeling I'm going to go with that yarn. And I will also pair it with either a thread of lace cashmere or a thread of lace silk mohair. So I'm really excited. It's still in my heart, still on my list, and I keep just waiting for a perfect moment to cast on because I don't want to overwhelm myself with all of these projects on my needles that needs to be finished, and I don't want to rush myself. The next pattern that I'm so excited to knit, and I can't wait to have it in my wardrobe, is Chantal Sweater by MorecaKnit. It's a gorgeous, luxurious, silky sweater. For me, I feel like I would wear it to a philharmonic, to listen to an orchestra, to a restaurant, to have a nice, beautiful dinner with my husband or a family, for a romantic photo session, maybe, for a lot of different official events, because it has a lot of silk content in it. If you look at the pictures, it has a very beautiful shine to it. It also has a lot of drape due to really high silk content. It's because of the recommended yarn. She's using Gepard Wild and Soft, which is 50% merino and 50% silk blend. She's using 2 strands of that and 1 strand of silk mohair, which is a lace weight. So you end up having a DK weight yarn combination that you knit on 4.5mm needles with all over slip stitch pattern. It's going to take a while because slip stitch is not so quick. You need to pay a lot of attention. As I mentioned, this designer takes her time to make really smart construction with sometimes complicated details. I don't think this pattern is really complicated, but it's definitely not for a beginner. So the reason why I don't have the yarn yet is because I live in Spain, and for me it's quite hard to find Gepard Wild and Soft. There is a store in Lithuania that I already purchased from, and I love that shop, but the price is quite high. Overall, Gepard Wild and Soft is expensive. Since I have a lot of projects on my list and I have a lot of yarn, I just didn't see sense to spend right now and just keep waiting. But with time, I found a few alternatives that are not so much cheaper but have a more fancy, luxurious content, yarn content, which is first option, a Execute from West Yorkshire Spinners Fall Ply. It's a fingering weight yarn that has 80% Falkland wool and 20% silk. So I saw a lot of finished objects on Ravelry with this yarn and I truly fell in love with. As well, I tried this yarn in one of the yarn shops in Chamonix, France, and I just can't stand it. It's so incredible. It's so soft and it's also durable, people say. So it's also lightweight, like it's just a perfect yarn. The Execute has also a lace version, so it's going to be perfect if I combine Execute faux ply, Execute lace weight, and silk mohair to that. Is going to be 3 strands, and I'm going to achieve the gauge. And another alternative to Gepard Wild and Soft is Rowan Iceland Blend Fine. So it's also Falkland wool and silk, which is very similar to Execute. Color selection is not so much in my taste, but I think I will go for standard natural white color. And it also has all of the characteristics that I just mentioned: lightweight, durable, super soft. I also touched it once in the yarn shop. So yeah, these 2 yarns are on my mind, and I feel if I at least pay so much money for the yarn, at least I'm getting a more luxurious blend rather than just merino and silk from Gepard. But still, I would love to try one day Gepard Wild and Soft, maybe something with one strand. So the last pattern on my list is Solene Cardigan by MorecaKnit again. This is a freshly new design that just came out a few days ago, and I just included it in my list because I couldn't stand it. When I saw it first on the Instagram, I was like, okay, it's okay. But this pattern grew on me over time, and the moment she released it just a few days ago, I saw it and I said, I'm going to knit this. I find it a combination of a casual relaxed fit with a vintage elegance that is finished with this cute little I-cord feminine details. I also love the yarn that she's using for her pattern is La Mana Vegramo. It has 75% merino wool and 25% alpaca. And when you wash it, it releases this beautiful fluff from alpaca and becomes a bit hairy, which you can clearly see on her dark gray sample. I also saw white samples of her test knitters, and I think the gray overall in every single yarn just is more fluffy and puffy overall because it's less dyed and less treated. So I think if I would choose to knit in this yarn, which I really want, I would go for this dark color. The problem is that it's not so easy to find this yarn, at least here in Spain, and it's quite expensive. And since it's an Aran weight yarn, it has, I believe, 75 meters per 50 grams. I think you need quite a lot of balls. Overall, I think La Mana is a quite cool brand. They have their special, I think even patented way of spinning the yarn that you end up with adorable but super lightweight thread. I also want to try a lot of different yarns from La Mana later when I need everything that I have in my stash. There was another project that I was about to cast on, and you know about it from my previous podcast. This is an Ester jacket by Petite. I have the yarn. I bought it specifically for this project. Since the pattern came out, I did it immediately, and I even have the printed pattern. Everything was ready to cast it on, and just last week I decided to not do that. The reason to that is that I don't like the projects that I see on Ravelry. Not that they're knitted in a bad way or anything, it's just that sometimes that's the case when you like a lot the pictures from a designer and you don't like the pictures from ready objects on Ravelry or on Instagram. And at first I thought it will grow on me over time, but it didn't. The more I see ready projects, the more I see how these heavy sleeves are kind of pulling the fabric to the back and to the side. I just don't feel like doing it, and I'm not going to push myself because it's quite a big project that will take a lot of time. The yarn was quite not cheap for this project as well, and I just don't see any sense to force myself doing that. If I don't want, then be it, then something else is going to come up. So this is the Jensen and this is the Highland from Isager, and I have enough of this separately and of this for two different sweaters. Basically they're just going to be thinner. For example, Ingrid's sweater and a lot of different sweaters could be knit with this yarn. Just find some mohair or anything to pair it with, and here you go, you have another project in it. Well, I hope that was inspiring and you got some useful, interesting information, plus the inspiration. Maybe you will decide to knit something from my list. If you do, please let me know. That would be so nice to hear in the comments. Overall, I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next episodes. And of course, I'm wishing you the warmest, coziest days with your loved ones. A lot of time for knitting, having some hot beverage next to you. Thank you very much for being here, and hopefully we'll see you soon in my next knitting podcast.